Reconvene recess meeting of the Finance Auditor Tendering Committee that commenced February 5th, got recessed to February 6th at 12:15 today. So just to carry on, got just a revision, a request on our agenda. On the Public Works Department of Finance Manager Lane Pino is just going to speak to it. Just going to add I believe three resolutions on Public Works that Lane will speak to. Go ahead, Lane, if you would, please.
Sure, Mr. Chair. So there's three resolutions that are drafted here under Public Works. One is for the awarding of a tender for a 2025 half-ton crew cab work truck, 4x4. And the second one is for a cyclone boom mower for skid steer. And the third one is for a grade front mount lawnmower. So these were approved through the Public Works Committee. They have sufficient funding and they were slated for the special meeting last week, but were directed to come through the Finance Committee for review and approval prior to going to council. So I'd like the committee to consider including these three tenders for consideration on our agenda today.
Anybody in the committee have issue with that?
Just to clarify, Lane, these are add-ons?
These are add-ons, yes.
Okay.
And there's a copy of, and this is also on the OneDrive as well. It's a separate document.
Mr. Chair, just for confirmation of where we are from yesterday's agenda, we completed item G, did we, yesterday? Yes?
Yes.
No, we didn't do G.
No, the planning and heritage.
No, we didn't do, we
deferred
stopped there.
that until yesterday's planning meeting, correct?
You're correct, your worship.
Yeah, so we're just to
Just
close the
adding
loop on the tenders.
You're just adding
Just
this?
adding it, yes.
And is that under new business or you wanna deal with it now?
We can deal with it now.
Sure, it's up to the committee.
So I don't see any issue with moving these on to council for
I just have a
approval,
question
part of the
on,
Public Works package.
on the third one. Lane, it says, so you only received one submission, 46,900. I just getting it here now. You wanna have to tender on it? Or is it a specialized piece of equipment that we can only buy from Atlantic Coastal Equipment? Your other two have a breakdown of the vendors' names, make, model,
Yeah.
bid price.
This one indicates that there was only one submission received.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I move it.
So moved, seconder? Seconded, thank you, by Mayor, Councillor Deputy Mayor Yankoff, thank you. All good, Lane? All right,
Thank you.
Continuing on to 6H, I guess, tender planning heritage, Rory Chason, Senior IT Officer. I don't know if Don is here, I see the name's on the agenda, but, or I guess Mike, welcome Mike Russ, our Director of
Integrated growth.
Integrated Growth, thank you. Okay, Rory, take us through your
So
tender.
This tender was publicly advertised, closing on January 21st. Tenders for planning and permitting GIS-centric technology. We received 6 submissions for this, but 4 of those had to be disqualified for failing to meet the requirements of the RFP. The remaining 2, Esri Canada received a technical score of 59 out of 60 for a total of 95 out of 100. And PSD Citywide received a technical score of 49 out of 60 for a total of 89 out of 100. So we're recommending that we move forward with the Esri Canada proposal. There's lots of details in the report, but if anyone has any questions, I can go into greater detail.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Deputy Mayor Yankoff to move Rory Francis tender recommendation on the council for further consideration and approval.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, so that thank you, Rory. That takes us on to the I guess number 3, 25-26 operating capital budget update. This probably we had the line item on the department, the finance department yesterday at the front end, but this is just I'm understanding, talking with you earlier this morning, Elaine, more of a just a kind of a verbal summary, I guess. And then probably some maybe questions that committee members may have as to the ongoing process for 25-26 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the capital budget, we've been working with the departments. We met with the department heads on January 9th, 23rd, and 30th to review both operating and capital budgets. On the capital budget side, we're working on finalizing the update for the forecast update for 24-25 and confirming what the department's status of various projects that are ongoing. We've instructed the department heads to prioritize their capital project list, and the list of priority capital projects are expected to benefit from early tendering, and that's why we're working on bringing that one to council first. So a prioritized list of capital projects with recommendations from the administration will come to a special meeting of council for deliberation planned to take place by February 21st of this month. On the operating budget, the 24-25 operating budget forecasts were updated by departments in December. The 25-26 draft operating budgets were completed by departments in December and early January and were discussed at the January department head meetings. And after the January meetings, we instructed the departments to do a final review to identify further expense mitigations and revenue opportunities. So the departments are directed to bring draft operating budgets to their respective committees by mid-February, middle of this month. And then operating budgets will be brought forward to council for deliberation and approval starting in February. So we've asked the departments to include budget schedules that have been as practiced in prior years, such as the 23-24 budget cycle, to provide more detail, more concise detail to council for deliberation and approval starting in mid-February. And the draft operating, so we're looking to present the draft operating budgets for deliberation and approval to a special meeting of council planned to take place by the end of this month, the end of February. And then additional special budget meetings will be scheduled in early March as required to finalize and approve budgets.
For operational. Except for operational?
Operational, yes.
So for operational, would you be looking at the end of the March?
For final approval, yes.
We just started.
Anybody here?
No.
Could I just ask with the capital budget, so we're looking at the 21st of March for the capital budget?
No, we talked, didn't you say,
Aiming for the 21st of February
21st.
for a draft to be presented to council.
Okay, for the capital, thank you.
Councilor Bernard?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good. We can start yet, or?
Just started, kid.
Check a couple of tenders.
Just,
Financial.
Lane has just kind of recapped a bit of a verbal summary of steps, proposed, remaining steps on the operating and capital budget, timeline approximately for 25-26. And he's indicated that kind of maybe by February 21st is a target date to kind of have perhaps our capital budget, I guess, somewhat finalized or close, I guess, is maybe the way to say that, and then
For when?
February 21st.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, will this committee be recommending that there be a special meeting of council that week so that we can get capital through before instead of waiting for this regular special meeting, if you will, at the end of the month? Is that the directive of this committee?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, I take your voice and lead senior people on that, if that's fine by me, if that makes.
You guys good with that? Okay.
What are we good with?
Instead of the fourth Tuesday, we can go with another special meeting just for the capital budget.
But we won't do it at noon, right? We'd have to, could we make sure we still do it?
Because you'll be
Because I'll
down
be
south.
calling in from another country and noon time would be 2 in.the morning for me. But 5 o'clock would be at least,
Yeah, we can do it.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Chair, can you tell me what the process is between now and February 21? Because we've only looked at the capital budget once. Hasn't gone back to any committee, so what's the process now? Because it should come back to us. We don't know where we are, we don't know how much over budget we are, we don't know how much cuts we have to make.
Do you mean
We just had our
us as in standing committee, counselor, or us as in council?
Well, I would
Which
say
which us do you mean?
both.
Okay, so.
If we've only seen it once, I'm assuming other committees have only seen theirs once. It hasn't come back to us. And I mean, the first round, it's a wish list, right? You put everything on it. So we're never told, Dan, where are we financially, where are we looking? So I know yesterday you said 50 million. So I have no idea where that is between all the city governments, all the other departments.
So thank you, through the chair to Councillor Bernard. So we're at about 86 million in terms of asks right now, so we have a long way to go. We want to bring all of the choices to council to make priority decisions. The intention would be though that the administration would come with a recommendation in terms of what of those $86 million in requests would proceed. But again, it's council's determination in terms of what the priorities are, but the intention is that we would kind of make a recommendation to you folks, and that would start the discussion that week of the 21st of February, perhaps not finalize it, but that would kind of be the first look at everything in total to council.
So if I understand you, Dan, then what you wanna do is, so if council says 50 million is the number, then we have 36 million to cut, so what you guys wanna do is come back with recommendations on those 36 million, how we cut it.
Yeah, that's kind of, but we recognizing fully that it's council's decision in terms of what of those capital projects move forward.
No, I understand that, I just think that, excuse me, with 36 million in asks, it's gonna be quite the arguments around the table. I just wonder if it wouldn't be better to, let council lose $86 million, and, if 50 million is what we're going to be borrowing, then other departments are gonna have to make some cuts somewhere. I wonder if that's not a little bit easier, it's, you gotta cut 5%, you gotta cut 10%. Here's your opportunity, take it back to committee, here's your opportunity to get down to this number, and if you can't, finance will. That used to be the easier way, and I know some excuse me, there may be some projects in there that some people feel that should be on the list that may not come on the list, but that'll be an opportunity when it comes to all of council.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wonder, I don't know, it'd be nice to get some other opinions from guys.
I just think before we have this discussion, let's put it up on the screen on what the $86 million amounts to. That's what I wanna see, I'm looking at last year's, and that's both water, wastewater, and municipal, it was 55 million. And the year before it was 65. So I'd like to see, okay, we always get to this point, that the ask is greater than what we can afford. I think as a standing committee for finance and administration, let's see the request coming from the other departments. And then just be prepared to go to the full council and say, look, we need to bring it down to 55 or lower. Correct?
Well, sorry.
Excuse me, Sue?
I just want to add to what finance is indicating as far as process, that we have asked the department heads to go back and prioritize their own capital, so that when it comes to council, you'll see, the top 5 or whatever for environment sustainability, the top 5 for parks and rec, the top 5 for public works, whatever the case might be. But to the mayor's point, if this committee wants to see that rating prior to going in there, that can be part of the process. There'll have to be another special meeting of this group in order to stay on our timelines. But it might help with the decision-making in the chambers if you see the priorities that are indicated through standing committee. And if the standing committees aren't meeting, again, prior to going into the chambers on the 21st, what the department heads could do is just send an update to their own standing committee members of what they've indicated are the priorities and where finance committee has weighed in. So at least all the standing committees are being kept in the loop on how the capital projects are being advanced. Would that help with the exercise if we did it that way?
So further to this, to which I'm not steeped in, the knowledge or the process, I guess, because I just wrote process here. So between now, as we sit here, and where we have to get this thing prepared, can an email go out before the day's over or the next day or so, just describing how we're gonna funnel this down, so it's clear to.
Just to that point, Mr. Chair, we would need another meeting of this group, is what I'm saying, between now and the 21st.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Yeah,
the package can be prepared accordingly.
I get that. I guess I just want everybody on the committee to be
Agreed.
clear, which
Yep.
I'm not clear on myself as chair, on the process.
I think that's
From
part of.
here to the 21st.
I think, Mr. Chair, that's part of the discussion now, is this group confirming for finance what the process is. So that's up to you to decide what the process is.
Councillor Bernard has been around this table for a long time. I remember during budget discussions when we were on council, it'd be 1 or 2 meetings a week or more to get this done. So if we have to meet 2 or 3 times, I'm more than willing to make the time available. I know we all are, because I just wanna get this budget out so that we can start, as you've said many times, so we can start tendering.
Yeah. The capital budget really shouldn't take any more than a month. It may require, at least 2 meetings a week during that time, but it's usually done. It's the operation that really, my experience has always been, takes a lot more time.
Yeah.
So I'm personally as chair, I'm here for the month, boots on the ground, and I'm available in March, but it'll be a virtual thing. So I'm prepared to meet as many times as is necessary between now and the end of
I don't know if
February.
it's a real long process. Everybody's already had their capital budget submitted once, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has,
You're
correct?
done.
Right.
Budgets are done.
Right, so it's just a matter of if there's any changes that need to be made to that, which it sounds like there is, because we're $36 million over. So I think the message got to go back to each committee, it's saying we're $36 million over budget, cuts have to be made. And we could either put a number on, or you can ask them the first time, to make some cuts where appropriate.
Yeah, through the chair,
Some, depending who's chair, and some will just say, well, I'm not making any cuts.
through the
Others will
through the
try.
chair to Councillor Bernard, so we have, before the draft capital budgets went to committees, the context was provided to the department heads that we are, 44% above where we need to be in terms of the capital project, so
Okay.
present them in that context, because we will be coming back to try to get that number down to a manageable level, and if the committees or department heads have recommendations in terms of where they can see, things moving off the plate, that was a request, first time through, and we really didn't get any movement from the
So
department
my
heads or-
experience has been the best way to do it is each committee comes back and says, you say, here's how much capital you have. So you gotta cut it down to that. And if it's a project that all of council agrees it should be, let's just say it's public works. And so there's a number there public works has to meet. When they make their cuts and it comes back, if there's one project that all of council agrees that, that should be back in there, then council will put that back in there. They'll have to find the money elsewhere. But I think the best way has always been looking at previous budgets and saying, status quo, or here's what the budget traditionally has been, you stay at that number. So for example, if we're using Parks and Rec and say our average has been 7 million and we're up to 11 million, well then there's some cuts that have to be made to get back down to that 7 million or whatever that number is. So I assume like mostly we've been borrowing between 50 and 60 million in capital, have we not, in the last few years?
23-24 was 65.
That's probably the Simmons rink though too, wasn't it?
Yeah, but prior to that, remember in 2021, we're at 100. Like, we're way up there.
So where do we come up with the 50 million figure?
Just in terms of what we believe, in terms of interest and depreciation, the operating budget can withstand without looking to a tax increase to
Okay.
kind of a sustainable level of investment in capital infrastructure. And there's no magic in that number, but it's really looking at the additional interest and
Yeah.
amortization costs that, would go along with our growth in tax revenue, so.
So could we go with the 50 million for now and look what traditionally been for the other committees and tell them to meet that number? And if there's more projects that have to be added, we still have some room.
Mr. Chair, can I just get a clarification, Councillor Bernard, when you, I guess I'm trying to sort out in my mind how we determine what the magic number is for each standing committee. I mean, that part's going to be a bit of a,
Yeah,
breakfast.
for me, it would be going back, say, the last 3 or 4 years, what's been the average capital budget dollars that they've been using?
because we will have blips on the radar
Yeah.
based on like Simmons Sports
Yep.
Center and that type of thing, that's gonna skew over
Right,
that average,
So I mean,
right?
obviously Parks and Rec's not gonna have $30 million,
Right.
So what's traditionally been Parks and Rec, like what's been the average?
Okay.
And you do take out those anomalies.
Okay.
Cause we're not that far off from what we normally borrow, which usually, my recollection's always been between 50 and 60 million, so it was 65.
65 was 23-24, and
Are you-
it was higher than that drawing.
Are you talking just capital dollars, or is that
It's right here.
partnership too?
And that's with the deductions from external funding.
Okay.
It's on page 69.
So then, so are we agreeing to 50 million for now?
I just have a clear question first.
Oh,
Councillor Yankoff, or Mayor, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm fine with the 50 million, but, through the chair to Councillor Bernard, do you mean that each committee, needs to, shave off so much? And are we saying that each department has an equal amount of capital money?
No.
Oh, okay, good, I didn't think, cause I thought the capital was based on council's initiatives and strategically what they wanna see for the city going forward. So our capital projects are based on council's initiatives and goals for the city. And,
And that wouldn't change.
okay,
But I mean, in other years, like Amanda, you would have, Public Works could be, $12 million. Or Parks and Recs could be $5 million.
right,
So whatever those averages are, could we traditionally don't borrow over 60 million in 1 year.
okay,
So it's easy to go back into our records and say, on average, here's what Parks and Rec had, on average, here's what Public Works had, on
Okay.
average. So, and I mean, really, there's only Parks and Rec, Public Works, what else is capital? Public Works.
Fire.
Environment and
Fire.
sustainability,
So,
in environment,
These were that much.
sustainability,
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
cause I know we have none in planning and heritage, there's no capital
Oh, I
budget.
said UB, I meant environment and sustainability.
What's that?
I did say UB, but I meant environment and
Yeah,
sustainability.
In water and sewer.
The
And I
water and
think,
sewer is a big one. It's very capital intensive.
what's that?
but it's a
Water
separate,
and wastewater.
it's not city corporation, that's just,
But it's in the
They have
bottom,
done it all.
it comes into the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
so I think it's always been easier if we come up with that figure and then you give each department has their dollar amount that they traditionally had for capital, and then you tell them to reach that number. And that should be going by, the managers should be having their priorities, the priorities should be listed, in my opinion, because they know what the departments need.
Mr. Chair, through you, can I ask Lane, just to-
Sure.
Lane, in the exercise with department heads, we have asked them to prioritize already.
Yes.
So they have like their top 10 or whatever. And if we were to go back and look at those and add those up, are we still way off of the 50 million target if we just look at their priorities?
But
Right.
yeah, probably not.
Because we might not need to reinvent the beast if we already have an idea from department heads in consultation with their standing committees as to if only their priority ones were addressed, are we at the 50 million range? Because then there's an opportunity, Mr. Chair, to just take the priorities from each department into chambers, as long as everyone in council sees all the things that wouldn't get done as well.
That's true. No,
So
no,
we're not
but-
circling back on, oh, I didn't realize that XYZ wasn't getting done this year. We'd have to make sure everybody understood the things that are being deferred to another fiscal.
So these would be in priority of what the staffing is basically recommending.
Yeah,
And so we can
but,
go to the committee, and the
yeah.
committee can say,
and the
yeah, I agree
committee,
with that.
yeah,
and go ahead.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that works,
So-
that works too.
so Mr. Chair, you know, I'm looking at last year's budget, you know, environment, sustainability and transit, that's gonna change significantly. We got Kerry here, we got Eastlink. I don't know if Lane's numbers reflects what the request that was made yesterday by the Eastlink Multi-Use Sports Entertainment Center, so that's an addition to what's gonna be asked. You know, we got a partner that's gonna be coming in shortly under closed business, that could change the numbers. We're at 55 million for last year. Interest rates now are down to what's the interest rate now, Lane? Is it 3%? 5.5.
Yeah.
So 5.5, so when we were borrowing back in 21, 22, we were borrowing at what, 3 or 4%? Like, the interest rates is, you know, we can lock in some good interest rates here. I just, you know, the 55 million or I think we just have to bring back what those asks are from all those departments. We have a discussion and then we can, you know, we can trim it and then take that back and have that discussion. But I think as a standing committee, we have to know what we're talking about if we go to the whole council.
Yeah, I think you run into problems though when you say that we here, we trim it. There's 4 elected officials here, we're gonna start trimming everybody else, like I think they
The
have. to trim.
recommendations.
I think, well, she's already suggested they go in with the recommendations.
Oh, like 80, whatever, 83,
Staff's
86,
recommendations, that their priorities.
those
The
priorities.
different committees can agree, whether they agree with those priorities or not, or they can make some changes if they feel. But I don't think you want this committee making all the decisions for every other department.
No, we don't make decisions, we make recommendations.
Right.
Standing committees make recommendations. But again, I'd like to see the big budget items. Is it fire, emergency, is it police? You know, maybe that's where we should let's look at the big ticket items. I know public works will be there, right? I know water and wastewater will be there. That's, again, we're not gonna be cutting, we're just making recommendations. I'd like to see what we are gonna face.
You'll have to take into account as well, like the multi-year projects that are already underway, right? That are ongoing, that
You can't
perhaps
cut.
you can't stop, you can
Well, in
What do you
fairness,
mean?
Mr. Chair,
Modify the-
through to Lane, I mean, I would hope that the department heads, when they're advancing their priorities, at the
Would
top
have
of their
those.
list is the things that are underway.
Absolutely.
So I would hope that's a safe assumption to make.
But those things that are underway, would they not already be budgeted for? And approved by council? That's why they're underway?
They would be approved as a project for the 5-year plan. And then for this year, you would have to approve the cash flow in terms of how it fits into that $50 million envelope.
So in other words, you're talking about something that was on a 5-year plan that hadn't started yet. Hadn't actually started.
It could have started last year, but it would be, if it's a multi-year project, it's part of the 5-year plan. We're reflecting cash flows in each year, right?
If it started though, Lane, the money's already approved. Right? That's how it started, it just hasn't finished yet, but the money's been approved for him to get started. Right?
It would be approved as a project, yes.
And if it's already started, the money's approved for it, because you wouldn't be able to start it without the money being approved.
Right.
Right. So that
So-
money's already approved, so I don't see, that shouldn't be a problem.
Just the money for that fiscal.
It's a cash flow.
You'd be approving the
cash
cash
flow.
flow.
As was
in
said,
terms
the
of
cash
the-
flow,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
issue.
Because you do run into the scenario which we talked about yesterday of if projects get delayed by year one, it's gonna push the
Right.
cash flow requirement to next year, right? And that still has to be, even though it's approved, the project's approved, it still has to be factored into your $50 million.
No, it shouldn't come out of the 50 million, it should be
consuming that
50
cash.
million plus your carryover. Cause that's already been approved, that's in the 24-25 budget. So if it passes over into this new cycle, to me, that's a carryover. It's not new money, it's been approved, it hasn't been spent yet. So your 50 million doesn't include that. So if there's still $1 million left to finish that project, it's 50 million plus your carryover of $1 million for 51 million.
But the carryover would have to be included in terms of financing, right, in
Yep.
terms of
That would be
determining
your
the level
51
of
million.
debt. Right,
But you're carrying over from, because if you approve 50 million in 24 and you use 49, you still have that million to carry over. You shouldn't have to borrow it again, it's already been approved. This is the argument Dan and I have had a couple of times.
No.
I shouldn't say
What,
argument.
If I-
what's the answer to it?
If I may, Chair,
Could I
through
just-
Councillor Bernard.
Excuse me.
Mr. Jenkins, just one second.
Let him finish.
Okay,
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so just to be clear, when we budget for a capital project, we don't take the money and put it in an account and hold it for
I know.
that project.
Yeah.
So the money only goes out as the project
Completes.
Expense.
I understand that, yep.
the spending
So
amount happens.
it hasn't been spent.
Yeah.
So it's,
And we have traditionally over budgeted on our spending, so there would be many millions of dollars of projects that were approved in former capital budgets that haven't been completed. But what the financial plan attempts to do is to lay out the spending intention of the city for the next 12 months. And whether the project itself has been approved, like an Eastern Gateway, and we're doing phase 2, or Harts Hall, and we're finishing the interior, it still factors into what council authorizes administration to go ahead and execute on. So although the project itself is a given that it's continuing, you still have to kind of factor it in and say, okay, we have to factor this into our spending needs for the next 12 months. And that's why it's
Right.
included in the
But
total.
when the finance department comes up with an amount of capital that you're allowed to borrow, that you're comfortable borrowing, that's based on your operational budget, how much you can afford to pay for the debt of that.
Yes.
So having said that, and then council approves that project and approves the money with it, and you haven't spent that money, then you have your operational dollars to still cover that project. So when you're doing 50 million for the next year, that's already been approved and accounted for. So yes, you would do your 50 million plus your carryover of a project that was approved and started. I don't think it has to come back to council that, you know what, we approved this last year, but we gotta put the money back in the end. So does council wanna do this project again?
Yeah, and through the chair to Councillor Bernard, I think really the 50 million number, or whatever that number is, I think
Does not include carryover.
is a snapshot in terms of, okay, where we are in terms of financial situation today. We've got $130 million of long-term debt. our cash flow is this, what do we realistically think we can afford to spend next year?
No, I read
So
that, yeah.
it kind of, it's a more up-to-date picture of where we are financially as of this point in time, and what can we afford to spend for the next 12 months. So that's where that $50 million number comes from. And, you know, I mentioned the fireboat yesterday. You know, that's been on the books for 4 years, but it's the fireboat. But it still hasn't been procured, so, but we still have to plan for that spending if the chief that's what the chief wants to do in the next 12 months and council approves it. So it's really just about updating the plan in terms of what we intend to spend, and the 50 million is kind of a,
So 50 million, and
Target.
the way you're talking, not really 50 million, it could be 45 million.
yes,
Because 5 million from that, the project never got done. So you're actually borrowing
yeah.
less. So if we've got 2 or 3 projects not done.
Yep.
Then you're borrowing for them again, and then so the new capital is even less.
Yeah, so, and really it is kind of, you know, of all those projects that remain undone, and whether they've been approved in the past or they're brand new ones, you know, kind of the 50 million is the number that we've tossed around as being sustainable. So some of that would be projects that have been carried forward from previous years.
Yeah,
And
see,
there would
that's
be
where,
some new
that's where I
ones.
disagree. Project approved, funding's approved.
Yeah.
Not done yet, carried over.
Yeah, no,
That's my take on it.
yeah, so I got the 55 million here in front of me. That includes carryovers, right, Lane?
That would
Yes.
be
So,
that year, the 5-year plan.
yeah, so if we had a project that started in 21, 22, 23, 24, 24, 25, what was left to borrow is still in that 55 million. But I go to the net debt, March 31st, 2024. Our net debt, what we borrowed, this is not borrowed money until we have.
I know, till we use it.
Our net
That's
debt
my
is
point.
$127 million. And that net debt goes up every time a project receives a payable that, like we received from Fitz and Snow. I think it was $17 million as one of the final or substantial, maybe it's not the substantial final payment. And then same with the Eastern Gateway. That was a $14 million project. But those projects are being paid out. As they get paid out, it takes from that 55 million. So again, I've always looked at, oh my God, we're gonna borrow 55 million, just put it in the bank. You only borrow it
When you use it.
when you use it, but you borrow at the rate that we agreed to. And a good time to get a good rate now, get a good rate is this time, because interest rates are going down. So for me, 55 million, it could be 60 million that we borrow, or 65, because it's
No, I
a
know.
good climate.
Okay, could we come back to, again, my focus right now is trying to work with the timeline to
Well,
get,
I don't wanna go back yet, because I'm still, in my mind, I'm still, if 50 million is the number, and we're gonna start rebudgeting over projects that last year that aren't done yet, then we're not at 50 million, we're at like 40 million. Because now we're using 10 million that was approved last year to do 25's project. I don't agree with that. That means we're getting less work done. You follow me?
Yes, I do.
So I'm saying, whatever that number is, if 50 million, we borrow 50 million for projects for 25. What hasn't been done yet that's been approved in 24, carry that over. So if that happens to be 5 million, then it becomes 55 million you wanna put in the books to show what we're borrowing.
okay?
To me,
So-
that's what makes sense.
Yeah, so Dan, does that, and Lane, can you work from that lens? Does that,
I'll let you respond. Well, I have already.
Dan, like, no, like,
Makes sense.
I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are running, running the finances and makes sense, like, I mean, is what Councillor Bernard suggesting here work?
It's worked in the past, so I can't see why it wouldn't.
So I think what we can do is bring forward the capital list that's prioritized by the departments. We can identify those scenarios where the project was delayed starting next year or last year, where funds have to be provisioned for them this year, and kind of identify what the total ask is, and then go from there.
I think what Sue said's a great, to me, that really works. You have the management staff come into the committee, say, here's our priorities, here's how much money we're allowed, here's our priorities.
Which we have.
What do you think, committee? I think that's, that's pretty easy. If they want to add more to it, they'll know the number. If they have to take some off, then the recommendations are there by staff of what they have to get done. Because there is priorities we have to look at, whether it's the parking garage, or we have things that we definitely have to look at that would be on the top of the list, I would think.
So just good old simple accounting 101, Lane and Danny. We made some budget transfers yesterday, right? We took from the Eastern Gateway, we took from the Parkade. That was money that was in here, in this 55 million that we borrowed, right?
Right.
What Councilor Bernard is saying, yeah, if we wanna do new projects, this number goes up. Because there's already money in there that's from year 1, year 2. So I agree, put more money in it. Instead of 55, go to 60.
Well, I think the point is,
65.
if it's 50, that probably will be 60 with the carryover, or 55, whatever the carryover needs to be, that will be. But I think we're talking about new projects, new money, I think we're saying 50 million.
And just to clarify, so my understanding of the 50 is that is kind of old, previously approved projects and new projects in terms of what we financially can sustain the next 12 months.
Okay.
But that's kind of the envelope.
Okay, so what was the new, what, in that 50 million figure that you had in your mind, how much of that was projects that are underway?
That really didn't factor into the discussion. So the 55 million that was approved last year, and we didn't borrow that money. We didn't go out and place a long-term debt offering for that. So we only fund that as we spend the money and as the projects are completed. So the idea in terms of that $50 million number is that would be for the next 12 months, that's kind of what we can afford to spend on capital projects, whether they had been approved previously or they're new projects. So I think what Mr. Pino is suggesting is that we identify those projects in the list of priorities that have been previously approved in prior budgets, but haven't been completed. And we'll be able to.
That's a number that I think we would need, because I mean, if that ends up being $12 million.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of capital dollars to be talking about.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So, let's work on the 50 million number, and then when that comes back, we'll see what that says. If that's another 15 million, I mean, to me, it's still money that was borrowed in the previous, but anyway, I think, is the Eastern Gateway paid out?
For the most part, I believe so, yes.
There's no, the substantial completion payment is not done, because that's usually 6 to 12 months. I know from experience.
That's just holdbacks, so you're talking about.
That's a holdback.
So is the Simmons rink pretty much all paid for?
I believe so, yes.
And did we get our federal funding, federal provincial funding for it?
The claims have been in process and we have received a good amount of them. We also, good piece of news is we also did have a positive outcome on our HST audit of the expenses for Simmons. There was a large claim for HST there that helped our capital budget in the past year, and that was successfully managed by Lane's team, and we had a positive outcome on that, so that was a big number. So,
Meaning we're getting HST back?
on the Simmons
Yeah.
project, yes.
So is there anything we're not thinking of that's a fairly big expenditure that's not done this year, that we have to carry over? Like, are we talking more than $5 million? Like, I don't know if Eastern Gateway's mostly paid out, I'm not sure any other big projects, so.
Just as you said earlier, Councillor, let's look at what's carrying over,
Yep.
what's left in that, and then let's say if it's 15 million, so that's the 50 million that we're gonna borrow, that means it's only 35 million of new projects,
Yeah.
right? So let's see what's still carried over.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that list too, that's a good question.
I don't think there's a big dollar amount that's gotta be carried over, so if that 50 becomes 55 with the carryover, to me, that's fine.
So, guys, does this work? Does it make sense, like what the mayor and
They got the skills, we're good to go.
They're the CPAs.
Yep.
we good? Okay, so help me, I'm available to meet, like whatever we gotta do on this, like when's.
We'll come off the golf course when you have to.
Like, all right, I'll just take your lead on.
And
Well, I'll tell you
Chair,
what.
if I'm away, and I know noon time is much better for probably most people, I'll set my alarm, so don't worry about me, you guys,
Okay.
I know there's a lot.
You're a good
I
Deb,
know,
you're a
I
good
know,
Deb.
because I know there's a lot of work to be done,
More
so
councils need people
just,
like you.
as long as you send me the note, I'll be there.
2 in the morning or 3 in
I
the
don't
morning.
care what it
No.
is.
And we don't want to take an image in just voice, right?
Depends on what I'm wearing.
So
Do you want me to send,
Yeah,
are you
but
going into closed now?
Yeah, did you have something?
No, I just wanted,
Something.
I was looking to speak, but the mayor has addressed my comments around making sure everybody knows what our commitments already are before so we'll know what the total new project will look like. I
Yeah,
think that's going to be addressed by the
Yeah.
finance team.
and if there has to be, you know, whatever, if there has to be a special meeting, a council to, you know, on the whole thing, that's whatever.
And to members' points, I think we'll have several meetings on both the capital and operating budget. But we'll try to get started that week of February 21st and try to get it done as quickly as we can.
Unless you want to, like, what's this, February 6th? Unless like next week.
Look,
we
I
should
can
be-
meet anytime.
We should be looking at the whole capital. And at least make sure that the committees know it's going back to them. And they, like Sue said, look at the priorities, see what the committees have to say about it. If they're okay with it and then move on, we can meet again a few days after that.
Mr. Chair, just before Sue goes to get someone to come in, we do have here a funding agreement with the province. Any update?
Mr. Chair, through to the mayor, there's no update at this time. We have not received a proposal from the province as of yet.
Okay, so again, I just wanna go back to what the chair said yesterday about how much revenue is gained from residential and non-residential. I think he's right, it's 20 million from commercial and 25 million from residential. So we've looked at some of the possibilities of that commercial tax that the province, or non-residential tax that province has on our properties. I think it's $1.50 per hundred, and we're 236. I don't think we get anything back on that, so I think that's one area we're gonna wanna look at. But I also wanna say, Mr. Chair,
That's the property tax on commercial properties that the province has nothing to do with because we're a full service municipality. So
No.
why are they taxing them?
there's two taxes, one for residentials, which works out to, they keep 40 cents, we keep 60. On the commercial tax, it's $1.50 on the hundred. There's nothing that comes back to us.
No, so why would the province be taxing our commercial properties when we look after all those?
Can you answer that, Lane? Can you answer that, Danny? I think it's.
It has historically been,
Oh, I know.
so, but there are certainly many who would suggest that the province should not be in the property tax business in municipalities that are providing full service. I think part of it is a carryover from when municipalities were responsible for delivering school,
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
it's
When they handed everything over to us, they just didn't hand the money with it.
Same as amalgamation.
Yeah.
But I do wanna make this point, Mr. Chair, I've called the minister responsible for municipal affairs, land use, and housing. He's not gotten back to me. I've spoken to the Minister of Finance, Jill Burridge. She said she's waiting for the Minister of Housing, Municipal Affairs to look at what's on the table. So both Mayor Dan Kutcher and myself have reached out by sending out emails to the Office of the Premier, to Ministers Burridge and Minister Myers to say, can we sit down and talk about this? And no word yet, so we're gonna keep trying, because we need something in place before we adopt our operational budget. That's my hope.
Yeah, the only thing that makes it difficult, Your Worship, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
is the amount of money that you give away. And the province will look at that and say, do they actually need money? That's, to me, if you're.
For what?
If you're in the provincial seat, and
Yeah.
you're seeing us giving away quite a bit of money in grants or what have you, the question becomes, do they actually need money?
Well, we do that because we're a municipality
I know,
that
I know.
is
I know.
concerned about what happens in our community through these different organizations. The province does it. They don't do it from East Point to West Point, North Shore to South Shore.
Yeah, just seen in the paper today too, there's been some changes with some of the staff at the Premier's office and
Yep.
some of the chairs. Anyway, all right, can we move to section or 7, introduction to new business, I don't know if there's anything there. Okay, and then 8, then, motion to move into a closed section as per section 119 1E of the Municipal Government Act, PEI. 119 1E, a matter still under consideration on which the council has not yet publicly announced a decision and about which decision in public would likely prejudice the municipality's ability to carry out its negotiations. Topic, Confederation Center of the Arts. All right, so,
Moved.
motion for
So
closed,
did we
moved by,
pass all the tenders?
pardon me?
All the tenders get passed?
There was an additional one added too. You have an extra,
Yes. And it was uploaded.
Just to finish, the motion to move into a closed session, moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Yankoff, thank you.
I'll come back tomorrow.
You don't?
No,
I gotta go, I got a guitar lesson at 3.
Okay, we're back in.
20 after
I was
2.
going to Julie's meeting at
Yep.
3:15.
I don't have my phone, I left my phone home this morning.
Okay, number 9, we open.
We're
Oh,
open.
business arising from the closed session.
None, sir.
Thank you. German.
Motion adjourned, thank you, sir.
Mayor Brown, seconded by
Thanks, Dylan.
Deputy Mayor Dankoff. Thank you.